Hey guys, Truetalk here, and today we are going to be talking about the premiere episodes of the DT TV shows that started this week. Supergirl, Flash, Legend of Tomorrow, and Arrow. I'll be leaving timestamps in the description if you want to go to specific shows, and without further ado, let's get on with it. To start the week off, we had Supergirl on Monday. Some things that I'd like to point out at the episode that I really enjoyed. I think it's interesting that we are going to be seeing Kara trying to find a balance between Supergirl and her human persona. That's going to be interesting to see her try to balance, as you know, with every superhero they have to balance their superhero persona and their, superhero identity. Second thing about this episode is I really like Morgan Edge. He seems like an interesting character that's going to be maybe more of a threat for Lena, but also Supergirl overall. But I like the dynamic of Lena versus Morgan Edge in this episode and probably even throughout the season. And I like that the kind of hero of the week for this episode was tied back to him, and that we see that he kind of orchestrated a lot of events that happened in this episode. Third thing, if you go back on my Instagram, when they dropped one of the first trailers for Supergirl, I predicted, but maybe, if it wasn't really hard to spot, I predicted that Cat Grant was going to be the new press secretary for the president, which is confirmed in this episode, which I think is really cool. It's like an easy way for them to still have her be out there and not, having a sabbatical somewhere random, and also explain her absence and maybe have her come over to National City from Washington, D.C. every now and again. Fourth thing, I really like that we see Rain in this episode kind of normal, and that what they're going to be doing this season is having her progress to become the quote-unquote big bad for the season. And kind of we saw her at her, like a normal person, her daughter, trying to save her daughter like any mother would do, and we saw her exhibit her super strength. We'll have to see what's going on. I see a lot of people saying that like her tipping point is going to be when her seeing her daughter die, so I don't know if that's really going to happen. Who knows, but there's going to be some kind of tipping point to make her become the quote-unquote big bad of the season. And the fifth thing about this episode that I really loved was that we see Kara using her powers more than I've ever remember seeing her use her powers. Like, we got to see her use her hearing, her super hearing, her x-ray vision and all of that, which I thought was really, really cool for this episode. And overall, I think it was a great premiere episode. I don't know if it necessarily can be compared to last year's premiere episode, because last year they had Superman, but I think this is a really solid episode. It had a lot of emotional beats that I enjoyed. Everything from last season, was reintroduced. Alex, Maggie, and all of that. So, excited to see what this was in store for the rest of this season. And with that, let's move into the episode 2 description for Supergirl, titled Triggers. Yale Grove Glass guest stars. Psy, a thief with psychic powers, attacks National City. Able to immobilize people by tapping into their worst fears, Psy proves a formidable opponent for Supergirl. Meanwhile, James and Lena are at an impasse, and Samantha starts her new job at L Corp. So, what we're going to be seeing is a new villain, Psy, who's going to be tapping into the worst fears of the people that she's attacking. So, I think in one of the trailers we saw her basically walk into a bank, and all of these security guards kind of not look at her and kind of fall away. So this is how she is going to be able to rob these banks. So she's basically going to be, these security guards and everyone that she's around is going to be experiencing their worst fears, and that's how she gets through. It's just going to be interesting to see what Supergirl's biggest fear is. May or may not have something to do with Mon-El, although I would be willing to guess it's going to be something about Mon-El. Maybe about him dying or being lost or something to that effect. The second part of this description, we're going to be seeing James and Lena, I guess, are going to be at odds in terms of Catco, because Lena bought Catco, and James is kind of the one in charge since Cat Grant is in DC. So that's going to be interesting to see. they probably have different viewpoints on how to run, I guess, the magazine. And Samantha, it looks like Rain is going to be working at L Corp. So that should be interesting to see, her go from, a normal person working at L Corp to becoming Rain. So lots to look forward to next week. Next up, we have The Flash on Tuesday. Some things that I like to point out about the episode that I really enjoyed. For one, I like Iris as like the person to keep the group together and the one, I guess, that's at the chair. It really can't be done any other way because Cisco is out there with Wally, fighting metahumans and stuff that they've been doing for the past 6 months while Barry had been gone. So, yeah, I enjoyed that. I enjoyed seeing Iris kind of more in a, I guess, power position or, one keeping the group together. Two, I really like, well, Cisco. Cisco is really important to this episode. He's the one that has hope and really wants Barry to come back. So he built a suit while Barry was gone and everything. So, like, to have hope, and the episodes are that he's consulted with people to, how to get Barry out. And they successfully do get Barry out of the Speed Force. And that leads into my third thing for this episode. Barry returns. And I really enjoyed and was interested by the fact that when he came back, he wasn't, better, per se. Like, he came out, he was kind of scrambled, and there are some funny moments in there and lines that you could recognize, like lines from the pilot episode. There was a line in there about buying new diapers, which kind of alludes to the whole Flash having the twins in the future, which is interesting and fun. So that just goes to show and illustrates that Barry has been living his life many times over while he was in the Speed Force for the 6 months. Fourth thing, I think it was a bold move to have Iris basically sacrifice herself and get caught, let herself get taken by the Samuroid. And it goes back to the little conversation that she had with Joe about having faith. So thought that was really bold and really risky for her to do that, but also how much faith she had in Barry to come and save her. And that's the fifth thing in this episode that I was like, wow. At the very end of the episode, we get a glimpse into the mechanic and the thinker, which I think looks awesome. I am very interested to see what we're going to see from him this season. It's really interesting that we get to seeing him this early. There's no question about it. He is Thinker, and that's going to be the big bad for the season. Next up, we have the episode description for episode 2 of The Flash, titled Mixed Signals. Barry and Iris go to couples therapy. Barry has his hands full when he takes on a dangerous meta who can control technology, while also confronting an obstacle in his personal life, the ramifications of abandoning Iris for 6 months to balance his Speed Force. Meanwhile, Gypsy reaches in for a hot date with Cisco, but she gets annoyed when his work keeps them apart. So, this episode is interesting. I guess Barry and Iris are going to go to therapy, which I guess the promos for the next episode, we saw a little clip of that. It's going to be really funny and comedic touch to the episode. And obviously Barry is going to be up against a dangerous meta. Interested to see if this meta is like under the, I guess, employment of the Thinker and kind of a preemptive strike and part of the Thinker's plan, because this is a meta that can control technology. Also in promos, we've seen that like Barry's suit is malfunctioning, so that should be interesting. I'm willing to guess that the meta that can control technology is able to control his suit and kind of mess with him and kind of get him into trouble. And next, the second part of this description, we have Gypsy. So Gypsy's coming back, and we're going to be seeing her trying to, I guess, go on a date with Cisco, but he's busy, preoccupied with, the meta that's messing with Barry and this brand new suit that he made. So that should be interesting going into episode 2. Following The Flash on Tuesday, we have Legend of Tomorrow, where we see them pick up directly after the season finale. We see the Time Bureau basically step in and use portals to take care of all the anachronisms in the city of Los Angeles. in the current time. And we see Rip returns and reveals to the team that he basically created a new kind of Time Masters, but they're called the Time Bureau, and we see them taking care of the mess that the Legends have caused. We then jump and see the Legends working regular jobs. We see Sarah at a department store, and we see her kind of imagine killing her boss, which she does not do, thankfully. But it's pretty interesting and funny. As always, Legends is fun. We also see Ray working at a dating app company, and we see Nate fighting crime alongside Wally West from The Flash, which is an interesting cameo that I thought was pretty cool. Number 3 thing that I like to point out about this episode, we see Mick in Aruba, and he discovers Julius Caesar there, and we see the team come back together as a result, and we see them go to the Time Bureau and basically steal their time ship back in order to go and fix this issue and prove to the Time Bureau that they can be of service. 2 other things I'd like to mention about this episode that I thought were really interesting. We see Amaya in Zambesi protecting her village from, I guess, poachers or something to that effect, using her amulet. And the last thing I'd like to point out about this episode that I thought was probably the most interesting, we see Rip and his, I guess, top agent talking about Mollis. I don't know if I'm saying that right, if I'm remembering it right, but it's kind of a looming threat that they're fearing of, and they're going to be using the Legends as kind of bait, I guess. So that should be interesting to see. This smallest threat might become the season-long, quote-unquote, big bad for the Legends. So we'll have to wait and see how that turns out. Next, we have an episode 2 description for Legend Tomorrow titled Freak Show. It's always a circus. The Legends find themselves in 1870 to fix the anachronism which happens to be at P.T. Barnum's fledgling circus. However, Nate and Ray accidentally free a saber-toothed tiger, creating a bigger problem. Meanwhile, P.T. Barnum is on the hunt to capture Nate and Ray to make his show even more exciting for the crowd. So, basically, what I'm gathering from this description is that the anachronism that they're trying to fix is the saber-toothed tiger, and they're going to be trying to take that from the circus. And as always, the Ray and Nate most likely showed off their powers of some sort, which has P.T. Barnum interested in trying to, I guess, capture them to make them part of his show. Last but not least, we have the Arrow Season 6 premiere that happened last night. And to get to what everyone wanted to know, the only person that died on the island was Samantha, which is why William is now living with Oliver. Thea also got injured on the island, and she is in a coma, as we see, maybe not towards the beginning of the episode, but more towards the end of the episode. But in terms of the rest of the team, we do see some ramifications of the island. We see Diggle not being able to shoot or aim. Quentin is dealing with, on the island, in order to protect the new Black Canary, he shot Black Siren, which looks like his daughter. So he's dealing with that in his head, along with Laurel's death from 2 seasons ago. So he's dealing with a lot. And those are 2 things that we've noticed throughout the episode. Everyone else seems to be okay, but we might see some other consequences of the island unfold on the other team members. So a big part of this episode was Oliver's son. We see Oliver trying to break through to his son, and we see his son having nightmares and ramifications of his own from the island. And we see him kind of blaming Oliver for his mom's death, although it's not necessarily true. That might be something that Prometheus had, ingrained in him, or told him that, Oliver is the reason your mom is going to die. But we do see Oliver make some breakthrough towards the end of the episode and building that father-son relationship. We also see that Black Siren is not dead. We see that, yes, Quentin shot her on the island, and left her there, but we also see, at the end of the episode, we see someone in a helicopter come and basically pick her up. My guess would be maybe Richard Dragon and or Caden James, but I feel like maybe Richard Dragon. But also, how would he know that she was on the island? We'll have to wait and see how that goes. Also, at the end of the episode, when we see Oliver go visit Thea in the hospital, Slade comes by to, I guess, visit, and we see him explain to Oliver that he's going back to Australia to try to reconcile with his son. And we hear him say the speech that we've seen in promos about living two lives and that they can't do it forever. Which is probably I would say, is like the big premise of the entire season. He's going to have to balance or figure out trying to be the mayor / Green Arrow that the people in Star City need him to be versus the father that William needs him to be. We have an episode description for episode 2 of Arrow, titled Tribute. Anatoly returns to Star City. Oliver tries to balance being the mayor, the Green Arrow, and a father to William. Anatoly returns to Star City with a deadly agenda. So basically what the premise of this entire season is basically what's in this description. He's going to be balancing being mayor, Green Arrow, and a father. And also in this description we see that Anatoly is coming back. So we're going to see him and probably some Bratva members coming and wreaking havoc on the city. Interesting to see. We also saw that last episode Oliver was outed as the Green Arrow. We'll have to see how Oliver deals with the backlash and all of that in the next episode as well. I hope you enjoyed this video, guys. As always, check out my social media. The blog posts for each of these episodes that I post practically within 10 minutes of the episode's airing are all on my website. Links will be in the description to go check those out for more detail on what I thought about the episodes. As always, follow me on social media. Happy Friday, and let's talk.